Sleepless, Chapter 6. 9 days remaining. May 13th, 6:15 a.m. Odette was off to an early start. She was showered and shaved by 5:30. With her parents out of town and her uncle working unpredictable hours, she has become exceptionally self-reliant. Today is a half day of school. She thought this would be the best time of the week to walk down to the market and restock her supply of noodles and broths. But why walk alone if you don't have to? She walks across the park and stops at Reggie's house. Their car is nowhere to be seen, but this is hardly a surprise. Dr. Tinsma is no less dedicated to her work than Takeshi. Odette bends down to pick up the mail that had been haphazardly thrown on the front step. From there, Odette knocks on the door and calls up. "Mr. Tinsma, are you up?" Reggie's dad is an otaku, a stay-at-home dad that fancies himself a visionary artist. Yes, he has worked on some comic books over the years, and he was invited to consult on a movie once upon a time. But big and important would be being generous. After a minute of waiting, Odette yells again, "Mr. Tinsma, I'm heading to the store. Do you need anything?" She remains for a few more seconds. "Well, what the hell?" she mumbles. She walks around the house to Reggie's bedroom window. The window is open. The blinds are missing. "Well, that typically isn't a good thing," Odette whispers to herself. "I swear, Reggie, if I climb in this window and find you dead, I'm going to kick your ass." Odette jumps through the window. The room is in tatters, but that is not unexpected. What is unexpected, on the other hand, is Reggie's sword snapped in half, laying on the bed. Odette freezes as she spots the blade. Okay, how does that happen? Odette arms herself with the flashlight she keeps hidden in the back of her dress. She calls out, "Reggie? Mr. Tinsma?" She starts to walk around the house. She searches Lita's room, the bathroom, then makes her way down the steps to the master bedroom and the kitchen. Overturned chairs and a tipped-over refrigerator are telltale signs that something has gone horribly wrong. Odette sneaks out of the house. Whatever has happened is beyond her. It is time to bring in the constable to look around. At the door, she bumps into Massimo, her umbrella draped over one shoulder as she holds the rising sun at bay. The tiny girl tips her head with a smile. "Odette, I thought you lived on the other side of the street. I was looking for Tinsma." Eve leans off to one side, trying to see around Odette. Odette hides her flashlight. She looks around, confused. Reggie isn't here. Eve asks, "What are you doing here?" Odette explains, "I was going to go shopping for them." May 13th, 6:30 a.m. Jin approaches Oso's tea house, a stack of papers in hand. His father has asked Jin to assist him in delivering a notice to all the shopkeepers of the new protocols for contacting the emergency services. In lack of any other leadership, Joe Kogatana has become the makeshift shogun. Starting May 14th, 6 p.m. will be lights out. Anyone seen on the streets will be arrested, the Festival of Drums being exempt. As Jin approaches Oso's place, a monk is standing outside the shop, a bottle of paint in one hand, seemingly drawing on the door. Jin calls out, "Hey, what's all this now?" The monk looks to the boy. He doesn't say a word. He continues his work. Jin approaches. "This isn't the temple." Jin places a hand on the monk's shoulder, spinning the monk to face him. The monk grunts and pulls open his robe, brandishing the mace he has tied to his belt. The door to Oso's shop opens. Rico Jet stands in the doorway. "Something on your mind, gentlemen?" The monk turns to look at Jet, as he growls and places a hand on his weapon. Rico groans in return and places one hand on his hammer. The monk looks up, calculating the odds in a hand-to-hand duel with the blacksmith. The monk does not press the point anymore. He takes a bow and walks away. Jin looks to Rico. "Out and about early today?" Rico moans. "I lost my house. so offered let me stay with him until I can rebuild. Jin pulls out one of the flyers. By orders of the chief constable, you are required to place this notice on display in your shop. Jin freezes for a moment. Also, Hanzo-san is required to display this notice. May 13th, 10 a.m. Dr. Tensma sits in the lab on the first floor. The windows she has blinded. The door locked. She sweats profusely. Her head is down as she studies a blood sample. One arm bandaged and tied to her chest with a sling. Her hair only barely held back by a set of sticks she has woven therein too. Tensma whispers to herself, I was right. The bug is a sleeper. But can it be teased awake? It hides inside red blood cells. But what is the trigger? Tensma leans back in her chair. This is a job for a chemist, not a GP. She takes a deep breath and nearly screams in frustration before the door unlocks. She quickly sits up and composes herself. Takeshi opens the door and turns on the lights, a cigarette hanging from his lip. Aren't you still on medical leave? I don't recall clearing you to clock in. Tensma explains. I don't report to you. I report to CDCI. All heads of staff do. Takeshi smiles. Yeah? Have they been answering your calls? No. Tensma explains. Then that makes me the sitting director. Takeshi adds. Can you please turn the lights back off and put out that fig? Tensma complains. It is making me feel lightheaded. Takeshi turns Tensma to face him. Takeshi squints as he leans in. Your eyes are dilated in an unusual way. Takeshi leans side to side, looking at Tensma from different angles. You know, people tell me all the time that doctors make bad house guests or something like that. Takeshi reaches into his pocket, pulling out his lighter. He plays with it as they talk. How are you feeling? Tensma rubs her eyes. I'm feeling a burning sensation between my eyes. She takes a breath, trying to relax. I had thought earlier, do you think that a psychosomatic disorder can lead to a physical deformation? Takeshi spins his lighter in his hand as he leans over Tensma, looking at her notes. I wouldn't expect it to. Not unless the condition you are referring to is a symptom, not... Tensma's vision becomes disoriented. She suffers from audio exclusion for a few seconds. Takeshi? She whispers. Takeshi looks over to Tensma. One of Tsushuki's eyes starts to bleed. Her eyelids pull back strangely, and her face twists into a smile. A voice speaks that only Tensma can perceive. Bring us Takeshi. Tensma jumps from her chair. She growls like an angry tiger as she grabs Takeshi, pushing him back and dragging him into the wall. Takeshi lowers his head, protecting his neck. He presses his hands to Tensma's shoulders to hold her at bay. Her mouth drops open. A tongue lined with thorns peeks out, like some form of an evil fish, teeth wiggling as fins. A deep purple gel collects at the tip of her tongue. Takeshi is bent over backwards, forced to lay on the lab table. In a desperate struggle, as a distraction, he flicks the flint of his lighter. This works to force Tensma to look away. When she does, Takeshi grabs one of the microscopes on the table and swings it as a hammer. Tensma falls to the ground. She looks calm, relaxed, as she lies on the ground stunned. Takeshi drops the microscope, then pulls out a pack of cigarettes. He lights himself a fresh one and looks around the room. He picks up the phone and turns on the PA. Service Blue to Microbiology. Service Blue, Microbiology. May 13th, 10:05 a.m. Sakura Tomoji, whom has been missing from school for the last 2 days, has returned. She was the first person in homeroom class. Having little else to do, she pulls out an art pad and a box of pencils. Sakura has an interest in surrealism-style art. A few years ago, There was a revival of surrealism in the West. Because of the interconnectivity of the world today, she had the opportunity to view some of the newest and strangest of this. Sakura, even though she is a girl, is uncomfortable with her femininity. If not for the school's dress code, she would never wear modern skirts or bathing suits. They are too tight and revealing for her taste. Instead of dressing in the blue coat and white blouse that most of the girls her age dress in, she's gotten permission from the school to wear a white sweater over her uniform. It was custom made for her, with the school's emblem on the back. She dyes her hair blue and wears it short. She carries around a Walkman and likes to wear earbuds. She is viewed by most of the school around her as a troublemaker, with weird and macabre taste. They are not wrong, but given her unique home life, this is understandable, at least by those that are in the know. Sakura's mother was weak, her father wicked. Sakura suffered some abuse. She will not talk about it to anyone. About 7 years ago, this led to an altercation, a murder, and a suicide by cop. Sakura is the only kid in Shinsamaru living in foster care. Quickly, Jin and Odette arrive. Typically, the three of them do not share a homeroom. But with so many students and teachers alike out sick, the school has consolidated, sometimes putting students from 3 or 4 classes together with a single instructor. It would seem today Origi is missing. Jin, as he is taking his seat, looks over to Sakura. "Where have you been all week?" "Mom is sick. I've been looking after her," Sakura explains. Odette sits at Sakura's other side. She reaches over and takes Sakura by the sides of her face, making the girl look at her. "Your eyes are bloodshot, lips discolored. You haven't been sleeping, have you?" Sakura nods. "Good guess." Jin looks around. "Has anyone seen Rigi?" Odette shakes her head. "I went by his house. The place was thrashed." Sakura turns in her chair. "Why? Who?" "There've been no crimes like that in this town in decades, right, Jin?" Jin shakes his head. "Well..." The PA system turns on. "Attention." The voice of Godoro comes over the wire. "By instructions of the Chief Constable's office, I am instructed to read the following message aloud." There is a moment's hesitation. "All classes scheduled to start at 7 a.m. are to be cancelled. All classes starting after 5 p.m. are cancelled. By orders of the Chief, all shops are to be closed by 7 p.m. and no one will be allowed on the streets after 8 p.m. without accompaniment by a deputy of the Chief. The blade restriction has been temporarily ratified. Under conditional law, anyone of the age of 14 or more may carry with them a retractable blade of up to 16 inches or a fixed blade of up to 20. Gozo turns the page. As some of you may already be aware, a disaster of unknown nature has occurred somewhere in Japan, and the NDF has been mobilized. To facilitate this, several government services have been suspended. The post office is closed. The National Bank is shut down. All telecommunications have been suspended. The brave men and women of Shinsamaru Police Department have agreed to stay on without pay until the situation has been resolved, as has the fire brigade. Anyone and everyone in town that is adept in a trade is asked to behave honorably during this time. Gas and electricity are still available as of this time. Should anyone have the desire and ability to assist in keeping these services functioning, please do so. Anyone working in produce or grocery, please see to it that your friends and neighbors do not need to do without. Be responsible, but be charitable. There is no need for anarchy or suffering. We will endure. The chief will be in radio contact as often as possible. The deputies will walk the town in shifts, guaranteeing accessibility. That will be all. Sakura looks to Jin with a disapproving gaze. So your dad is the emperor now. Jin shakes his head slowly. He pulls his phone from his pocket. He flips it open, then shuts it and hides it again. You missed the razor's edge of the statement. There is a philosophy that states, the world is never more than 3 days from anarchy. We're about to find out if that's true. Odette joins the conversation. I remember something about that. Some sort of invisible truths that lead to the collapse of civilizations once they're broken. Jin nods. Our culture is a house sitting on sand. There are things that we have all talked ourselves into believing. The home is sacred. The water is clean. Money has value. Someone is looking out for us. The law guarantees safety. This foundation is eroding away quickly. My father has moved into position to try to slow the coming storm. Sakura watches Jin elaborate. Jin continues, the bank is closed. That means money is useless. Internet, radio, television are all offline. The post office is closed, which means that the lines of communication we count on are gone. My father can't contact the office of magistrate. We are cut off from the government. So, my dad chose to act as an interim government. We follow his lead, or... Sakura finishes the thought. These so-called civilized people all around us start to eat each other. Odette nods. That sounds like the short and skinny to me. You gotta love entropy, Sakura whispers under her breath. May 13th, 11:15 a.m. Joe approaches the hospital. A monk is standing out front, drawing graffiti on the door of the structure. Joe waves the monk off, then marches into the hospital. A sneer of entitlement burns in his eyes. Joe punches the secretary's desk, demanding to see Takeshi. A confused nurse slowly points Joe around the corner to the laboratories. The door Joe is led to has the windows blinded. The door is locked. A blinking light overhead informs the staff that the lab is in use. Joe knocks. The door is half opened by Takeshi. A cigarette hangs from his lip. He leans out the door. Do we have an appointment? He speaks in a drowsy voice. Give me that. Joe takes Takeshi's cigarette. He throws it at the ground. I'm not here on a social call today. I have questions. And what would that be? Takeshi pulls out his pack of smokes to pick out another one to replace that which Joe took. Joe takes the cigarettes and proclaims, "This isn't good for you." He throws the pack of cigarettes across the hall. Takeshi comments, "You look worse than usual." "Takeshi?" Joe asks. "Are you affiliated with a woman who calls herself L?" Takeshi shuts the door behind himself and locks the lab. "I don't recall knowing anyone by that name." "How about Watori?" Joe asks. "I only know the name in passing," Takeshi expresses.
One of my co-workers put me in touch with a specialist working for them. I think they're an overseas academic organization. Some sort of a Mensa-like organization. Do you trust them? Joe orders. I don't know them, Takeshi explains. But knowledge is useless if you don't use it. So, anyone that wants to share their insight with the academic community is sure to find open arms and scrutinizing eyes. Do you know anything about the Hijoji Company? Joe commands. I buy most of my drugs from them. Are you aware of any experiments they're performing? Anything dealing with radiation? Joe inquires. That isn't their typical mode of operations. At that, Takeshi stops Joe. No. Can you tell me where this is all going? Joe reaches around Takeshi, pulling him in close. He whispers, "Let's take a walk." The radio on Joe's hip beeps. Constable, you're needed at the corner of Temple and River Street. Joe looks at Takeshi. I'll be back. May 13th, 11:45 a.m. Outside Ichishin Megami, 6 cops are in an argument with 4 monks. The hospital truck that had been there to deliver a handful of dead to be blessed has been rolled over. One monk stands over the truck with a wine barrel. Another dons a torch. Joe arrives on scene in his car. He stands up and approaches boldly. One of the cops demands, "Set down the torch." The monk holds his ground. 2 others move into place to stand between the cops and the truck. The police are armed with clubs, the monks with staves. The monks walk forward, ready to fight with the police. Joe walks between them. He reaches onto his hip and pulls his gun. "That's enough," he orders. Joe cocks his gun and aims down range. "You'll put out that torch at once." The monks don't pay any heed. Joe fires a warning shot into the air to demonstrate that his gun is loaded. This creates one of the most terrifying sounds that one is likely to hear. The monks have never seen a gun fired. It has been illegal for anyone other than the military to have guns in this village since the 1960s. So, Joe has one of the only guns in town. The monks drop their weapons. Kokotana points to the monks. "Detain them!" 4 monks are chained up and dragged off. May 13th, 4:45 p.m. Oda arrives at home. She calls out, "Takeshi! Are you home?" She walks around the house, finding she is alone again. Well, it's easier to cook when you're cooking for one. Oda grabs some cheese, some milk, and some rice from the fridge, butter, broccoli from the pantry. She boils herself a rice and vegetable hot dish. After that, Odette spends some time reading. Then it's time to do some stretching and time for a bath. At school, one of Odette's friends slipped her a naughty magazine. She flips through a few pages, but finds it to be of little interest, especially after the government-mandated black boxing. What is the point of a skin magazine if all the skin is blurred out? I am more likely to see a naked body in a kid's cartoon than an adult publication. Odette walks back to her room in the nude. There's no one home, and it's nice to fan out and relax sometimes. She looks through her dresser, picking out an outfit for tomorrow. All classes for Saturday are cancelled. Odette looks at a few pairs of tights, a few pairs of jeans, and her collection of shirts and skirts, debating which one would fit best. The pink jeans and cat shirt. That is fun. She then looks at one of her other shirts. I think the green one, but I don't know if green is in season right now. There's a tapping at the window. Odette looks over to it. Her blinds are shut. A shadow is looming behind it. Odette picks up her housecoat and ties it on. She picks up a tea tumbler from the nightstand in her room and grips it by the base. The tapping comes again. A whisper is shouted through the glass. "Odette!" There is a pause. "Odette! Let me in." Odette approaches. She pulls open the blinds. The shadow is gone. One more tap. This time from off to one side of the window. The voice is that of Regi. "Odette, I want to talk." Odette opens the window. Regi appears from one side and slips into the room dressed in a long camel coat and a jungle cap that he must have taken from his father. Odette is shocked by the odd look and behavior. She swings the teacup, slapping Regi across the face with it, forcing him to look away. She then uses the cup as a hook to grip him by the back of the head and grabs him with his shoulders with the other hand. She pulls the boy forward, delivering a crushing knee strike to his chest in a second, and then cat steps past him to throw him at the ground. Odette stands over Regi, startled. She pulls back the cup, threatening to swing it like a hammer into her friend. Regi curls up into a ball on the ground. "Odette!" he shouts. Odette drops onto her friend with a falling knee strike, kneeling atop him. "Regi," she shouts, "why are you sneaking around like a creeper?" She pins him to the ground. "Odette, let me up," he requests. Odette steps away. Regi stands up. His eyes are wide. His skin is jaundiced. His teeth are peeking over his lips. Odette looks him up and down. "What happened to you?" Regi explains. "Ray came to my house last night. He was looking for Lita." Odette expresses, "Ray is very dead." Maybe it wasn't him. It was something wearing his skin. When it came, it couldn't find Lita. It took my dad, dragged him off into the woods. It came back to chase me. I ran into the park. I hid amongst the tanuki. Regi explains. "I think I was wrong. This isn't some sort of government conspiracy. There really is something in the woods. Something evil. So why do you look like you're sitting on death's door?" Regi comments, "The flies." He walks the window looking out at the church. A bright light is burning within its depths. All the insects in and around the forest are tainted. He looks down at his hands. His fingernails are cracked and ready to fall off. "I was strong." He undoes his shirt and looks to Odette. He pulls open his shirt to show off the fissure in his chest that is blistering with a yellow-green ooze. Odette shakes her head. "We need to get you to Takeshi. That isn't good." Regi shakes his head. "It won't help. Once stung, the monsters in the woods are attracted to you. During the day they're slow, sluggish, tired, but come sunset, they'll be out on the hunt again. They will find me, and once they do..." Odette backhands Regi. "Shut up, you're sick, you're not dead." Regi explains. "You don't understand. They're in my head. I can feel them thinking. They will come. I came here to let you know. I'm going to go into the woods, look for their nest, and I'm going to burn them." He pulls out a lighter and some grilling gas. "Burn them all." Odette frowns and nods. She turns her body, stepping in a circle kick. She hits Regi in the chin with her heel. He spins around a half-dozen times, then falls over. May 13th, 7 p.m. Regi can hear voices. His vision has gone dark. "Why'd you tie him up?" It was the voice of Jin. He was acting crazy, more so than usual. This time it's the voice of Odette. The pipe. That goes to the city gas line, Sakura Tomoji explains. Galvanized brass going into 6 feet of concrete. Ryuji shakes his head and forces himself awake. He's in the basement of Odette's house. He is lying forward onto what looks like a radiator. His arms are chained together. Hey, he protests. Sakura leans on the wall, looking to Jin and Odette. So, am I spending the night? Jin speaks up. I think it would be for the best. The 4 of us should never leave each other's sight. Ryuji yells, Come on, untie me! The conversation continues as if they couldn't hear Ryuji. I have some cheese and rice. If you guys would like some, Sakura explains. I want to go buy Oso's in the morning. I need a new knife.
May 13th, 8:25 p.m. Nekobo walks through the woods. A strange smell draws him ever more rooted. In a trance he climbs up the hillside and makes his way to the forgotten village. In short order, he has pushed some overgrowth out of the way to discover a door marked with an emblem of some old forgotten faith. He pushes open the door to the desecrated church. With a few moments to look into the drawings on the walls, Nekobo has worked it out. This is a Krishna temple. But would a Krishna church be doing so far out east? Masumo sits on the rafters, 20 feet overhead. She calls down, the same thing that everyone does when they run away from their home. The Krishna came here looking for safety. 500 CE was not the best time to be a Hindu. Masumo pushes herself off the rafter and falls into Nekobo's arms, pushing him over. She smiles and giggles as the small girl sits upon the young priest. She then stands up to walk over to the front of the church. Empress Theodora had a distaste for people of faith. Non-Roman Christians more so than most. If you are going to have a god, it better be hers. Between the Byzantines and the Persian Empire, that was a few decades of discomfort for everyone. Nekobo sits up. He rubs his head and turns to look to Masumo. Strange lights come in through the windows overhead, casting a shadow of monarch wings growing from her back. You sound like you were there. Masumo turns her heels, spinning to look at the priest. I was. For only a moment, the magic that hides Masumo's real face fades. Her eyes turn gigantic. She grows 4 arms. Her skin becomes white. And she has wings made of silver. She is the statue he had seen in the elder's house. Nekobo crawls away a few steps. You are a monster. From your perspective, I can see why you would come to that conclusion, Masumo comments. But I don't think it's all that simple. She steps into the shadows, retaking her human shape. I am she, the butterfly. It takes some time for Nekobo to collect himself. Masumo tips her head with a smile. Follow me. I want to tell you something. She runs off to one side of the room and pushes open a door hidden in the corner of the church. Nekobo feels compelled to follow. He considers his feelings and comments. Can you control people's thoughts? As they climb down the spiraling stairwell, Masumo explains, sort of. I can send people and animals ideas. If I do it right, you can't tell the difference between my thoughts and yours. It takes a strong mind to work. It takes a strong mind to work that one out. How? Smells, she explains. The nose plugs into the cerebellum, or whatever it is, and that lets me sidestep the other senses. Now, if I were to make a mistake and use too much of the drug that allows me to do this, It would cause all sorts of trouble. As they moved down the steps, they arrive in a vault-like room. Bookcases, dozens of them, treasure chests stacked high, oil lamps light the way. Nigba admires the room. "What is this?" Mosmo explains. "This is Chinsamaru, at least as much of it as my family could protect." She walks over to one of the chests, opening it. She reaches into her pocket and pulls out the gold coin she had shown Oso. She drops it into the chest along with a stack of rings and necklaces. A strange thing happened a few decades ago. People started to grow a sense of nostalgia and justify their lives with trinkets and charms. I've been collecting these lost tokens for years and bringing them here to hide after people die. Are you unique? Are there others like you? I'm the only one that's called She the Butterfly, but they're others of my race. Sudasanto, Muha, a few dozen others. We have been in this town just as long as you have. You just never notice us. We call ourselves Chromans, Mosmo explains. Why do you look human? A few drops of human blood added to one of our cocoons allows us to mimic your shape and your behaviors. Do you know what killed Hanzo's boy? Nekoba inquires. Another animal who looks like me, but they are not us. They are called Singwen. How old are you? She of the butterflies. Nekoba wonders. Mosmo leads Nekoba to a reading room. If you mean this body, about 32 months. But that would only be half true. My people, when in a genetic bottleneck, can lay eggs that house a clone of ourselves. Our memory is mostly intact. Due to limited partners, most of us have had to rebirth ourselves hundreds of times. I think this is my 70,000th reincarnation. Nekoba sits down. He is fascinated by the story. How much time passes between regenerations? Mosmo looks up at the ceiling of the room. Depends on the weather. If it gets cold, we will hibernate for several hundred years. But with how warm it is right now, we could shed our skins and be back in a week. There was one point in time when a lake formed around me when I was asleep. I was asleep for like 1,000 years. And the Sanguine, what of them? They nest inside living things, infect the brain, kill the host, then metamorph the body into a usable shape. I can't remember my first life anymore, but I think they used to be our predators. Only now does it occur to Nekoba that what he should ask. Why show yourself to me? That's easy enough. Every generation we look for people that have a mutation that will let us bring them into our folds. Nekoba, you may be able to breed with us if you have the desire and ability. We could make it worth your time. Nekoba lowers his eyes. I think I need some time. May 13th, 8:40 p.m. Jet stands over the flooded remains of his house. He looks down into the rubble, and he stares. He has been watching the ground for several hours, as if the force of will could turn back time. He suffers in silence. Ciro Santo walks up alongside Rico. He holds out in front of himself a plastic horse, blue with a red mane. I found this down there in the sand, Ciro Santo explains. I think it's yours. Jet looks at the toy. This belonged to Arhi. I gave it to her on her birthday. Ciro Santo inquires. Has the body been unearthed? Jet shakes his head. No. Arti and Kuma
are both still missing. Them and more than 100 others. Jet looks over. I'm sorry, old-timer. Are you and I related? Sir Sancho ducks his head. Kuma never did like to talk about her family, did she? She was my niece. That would make you my nephew, I think. It is too bad that. It is too bad it takes strife like this to set the pains of the past off to one side so often. Kuma. She was like an angel of mercy to me. I'm a lonely man. A man that likes to work hard, hammer out my own troubles. One day, I'm sitting and drinking tea with Oso, when Jet lowers his head and covers his eyes. The thought that he is alone is starting to erode away his defenses. Sir Sancho looks down the road. It is well past sunset. If you have a place to stay, you should make your way there. Sir Sancho sets the toy on the ground at Jet's feet, then walks off. A flashlight shines down on Jet from somewhere up the beach. A voice calls out, "Hey you! It's past curfew. You should get inside." Rico speaks up. "Are you trying to tell me what to do?" The cop walks up to Rico. "Why aren't you at home?" Rico points down into the water. "I am." Rico is walked back to Oso's house. May 13th, 10:22 p.m. Takeshi steps onto the roof of the hospital. Hitting up one sleeve of his coat is a hypodermic needle. Work these last few days has been hard. Hard enough that Takeshi has felt the need to self-medicate, even more so than before. Coffee and cigarettes aren't doing the job at this point. A little shot of amphetamine should help keep his focus. Takeshi rolls up his sleeves and injects himself. He takes a deep breath and watches the sky, waiting for the drugs to kick in. Evil eyes start to spawn in on the roof, just deep enough into the dark to hide their faces, but not so far as to make them invisible. A dozen voices speak in stereo. "Tinzima! Bring us Tinzima. The girls. Give him to us. The mother and the child. They belong to us." Takeshi digs his feet into the ground. "This is my town, my hospital. You can't intimidate me." The voice whispers, "Bring us the mother. You can keep the child. She is worth less. The mother we want. She is good and strong and virile." Takeshi pulls his arms into his chest and lowers his torso like a wrestler, readying to body a charge. "Come and take her if you can." The monsters taunt him. "We can wait. Can you? You are human. We are not." The eyes sink into darkness. Takeshi stood his ground, his spirit powerful enough to push away evil. For now.